right, everyone, super excited. Welcome to another episode of the Veteran Entrepreneur Masterclass. Today's guest is the astute. I just made up a word already. That's great. The astounding and astute Steve Mancini. So Steve Mancini, just for a total rant, which I think I shared with you before I say anything or let you speak at all. My mom's sister, so my aunt, married a Mancini from Rhode Island. And so my cousins are all Mancinis, and there was Mancini hardware in Rhode Island. And he was Italian, but not involved in the mob. But so I have a fondness for the Mancini name. So much respect
Very
there.
interesting.
Welcome.
Yeah. I hear most of them are on the East Coast. You don't run into a lot on the
Italian
West Coast.
thing.
Although
Yeah.
I will say that before she died, my grandmother told me a story which totally changed everything. I don't know if it's true or not, because she was quite elderly, but she explained that her husband, my paternal grandfather, who I never met, uh, when he left Italy, he stole the papers off of a dead World War I soldier's body, and that's how he got into this country with that name. So who knows?
So you're not a Mancini.
Could be.
Have you done 23andMe?
Actually, my brother did that, and it shows exactly what we thought. 1/4 Irish and 3/4 Italian, Northern Italian.
Okay. Well, cool. That's 23andMe is pretty amazing. We can talk about those traits and the history and the lineage and all the crazy stuff you know or don't know and all that stuff for another. That's a whole podcast in of itself right there. But I will ask, you got a phenomenal office. What are the guitars on the wall behind you?
The guitars are this one here to my left is from Casey and the Sunshine Band. We put on things at Humphrey sometimes for the benefit of charities like hospitals and so forth. And this one over here was one where we were doing that, and it was the Doobie Brothers. And my partner chickened out. He was supposed to get on stage with them. So without any warning, I decided to go up on stage and I sang with them. And as after we were done singing, the older guy said, "Just stand next to me and do what I do." So we did okay, and then they made me an honorary Doobie Brother, and they all signed the guitar and gave it to us.
That's awesome.
Now,
I think
I may be an honorary Doobie Brother, but I don't get any royalties. I'll tell you that.
well, I mean, you're the attorney to figure that out if you need some, right? So that's a good thing there. I think I saw them at Jazz Fest in New Orleans maybe 20 years ago, a couple times. Doobie Brothers like to play at Jazz Fest, but that's good. So hey, so for our listeners here, this is normally the podcast is broken into two series: a leadership series and an educational series. I think with your expertise and your background, I think today's definitely going to be educational in nature. I'm really excited to have you on. I'm a little intimidated because you're good at what you do and you're fancy. You're one of those professionals that's like up on the pedestal, and I have to make sure my game is on the high level to work with you because of the stuff you do for your clients. So before we talk about the professional aspect, though, why don't you give us a quick background on just what you did in the military and your time frame for the military?
Well, for me, that's quite a long time ago. It's over 50 years ago. 1968
Wow.
is when I graduated from high school. And my best friend and I decided they were just starting to draft for our draft numbers were coming up, but they were just starting to draft, I believe, for the Marines. And I know you were a Marine, right?
Correct.
Somebody told us that the lifespan of a Marine was not very long. So we decided to be proactive and join the Navy. And we did so in 1968 on the buddy plan, where they were supposed to keep us together. And of course, immediately after boot camp, we were separated. He went to some battleship or a destroyer off of Korea, and I ended up in Vietnam. I was actually there on minesweepers.
Oh wow!
So they're designed wooden ships designed to sweep mines, but we were going along the coast and some of the bigger rivers in Vietnam, and it was a wooden ship bobbed like a cork across the Pacific, and 160 feet long, and only 60 people, officers and crew, all together. So anyway, I was a radioman.
Okay.
I enlisted man. We got out of a boot camp, and they approached us about officer candidate school, and we looked at each other and we said, "This is great. We'll be officers. We'll do that." And then we asked about the time. We were 18 years old, and they said, "Well, you have to have not a 4-year commitment, but a 6-year commitment." And so we're actually using our fingers. We'll be 26 years old. We'll be old men. No, we're not going to do it.
30-year life over again, right?
That's too bad crazy. They didn't provide some counseling there, because that would have been a good opportunity. But I enjoyed the military. I like the organization. I liked everything about it. I really appreciated the way the military taught. So when we went to a school where we learned Morse code, which they really don't use anymore.
Right.
I mean, remember, this was before computers, before cell phones, all that.
That semaphore too. Did you know semaphore?
I didn't get into that, but they had a big group of us, and they basically said, from the military's point of view, all right, everybody that cannot type, go over there and follow that guy to typing school. The rest of you, you can type. You're going into this school. And every day we went in and we sat there from early morning till 4:30 in the afternoon with some guy up there saying A, Alpha, B, Bravo, da 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 da. And if you got through it quickly, you got through it quickly. If it took you a couple months sitting there, it took you a couple months. And I just happened to have a knack for code, so I went to high-speed code school, and it just seemed like the code could be coming through the earphones and through my fingertips, typing it out, and I could be daydreaming about girls or something. It was just crazy. But I really appreciated it. I saw guys that were not too bright at all, went to language school and learned how to speak Russian or whatever language it was, and taught the same way. I don't know that in the civilian world that would be tolerated, that kind of schooling.
Well, education's changed. Everything's changed. I mean, my son's in kindergarten right now, and I learned 1 + 1 = 2, right? And now in kindergarten, they're like, Bob and Jenny go to a party with 7 balloons. Bob has 4 balloons. How many balloons does Jenny have? I'm like, it's pretty much algebra. Like, they're solving for X already. I'm like, it's kindergarten, not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 7 equals, and then question. You have to add how many balloons. I'm like, what? So it's amazing. I think education's changed a lot, military and civilian wide. So guys went to Monterey language school, has some different stories too. But I think the way the military teaches, I agree. There are some great ways to get some knowledge down quickly because they have to, out of necessity, right? Because normally there's some sort of event happening.
Yeah.
And there's a need, but it may be nice if you sat there. Oh, I'm okay. I'm in code school and I can I just can't get this one right. Another day. If it's peacetime or wartime, I can either go to the front or I can sit here and try and figure out how to code the letter F. I think maybe learning to code the letter F for a month or 2 would be okay.
Yeah. I enjoyed the military so much that I was probably going to re-enlist, but I got back from Vietnam without a scratch. And was for the last part of my time I was stationed in Pearl Harbor at the communication station. And I was so sick of being in an old World War II barracks or aboard ship that I wanted to be like a real person and have an apartment. So I got a motorcycle, and you know what happened there? I got hit by a drunk driver, fortunately on the way to watch. So it's considered service connected, but I was in hospital for over a year and a half.
Wow.
Army hospital in Tripler in Honolulu. So, but that's there's a silver lining in every cloud.
Silver lining, depending how you look at things.
I met my wife there. Her boyfriend was a Navy SEAL, and she was trying to do some good. So she was a volunteer at Tripler Army Hospital as a Red Cross volunteer, and I met her when we were in traction, and I fell in love with her. And at some point after that, I actually got out of the traction, got out of bed, and I was horrified to find out she was taller than I was. But it's worked out for 50 years. So
you took her away from the SEAL?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but yeah, he was he was actually on one of the SEAL teams that was highly decorated back then, and I guess he had some issues from that. So
I understand. Well, thank you much for your service, and thanks for sticking with what you've done. And then, so you got out, did your time, and then you went obviously to law school. So kind of give us your progression into kind of what you do now, or how you got to what you're doing now.
Well, I wanted to be an attorney after I talked about it. I really wanted to be in politics, and I went to an undergraduate school called Chaminade University, which is a Marianist school in Honolulu.
Okay.
Like a Catholic. And I was applied for and was accepted to be an intern at the Hawaii State Legislature because I thought I would like politics. And that completely turned me off on politics. So that's when I went to the law. My senator would send me around to other senators' offices with a proposed bill or a resolution. And they never once asked about the attributes of it. They wanted to know, would it alienate their constituency, and if they voted for it, would he vote for one of theirs? That was the essence of it. And I thought, oh, not what I thought.
That's what politics is, though.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, I actually did a podcast, or not a podcast. This is a podcast. Sorry. I did a webinar earlier today. I do webinars and this as well. And we went over Secure Act 2.0, the legislation that came out for the 401k industry. And one of the pieces of that legislation mandates that employees and pensions must receive a statement in paper every quarter, even if they have electronic delivery, they have to get a paper statement. Why is this happening now? When everyone's trying to go away from paper, it's because the paper industry lobbied.
Oh, of course,
paper statements for quote unquote old people that can't use social media and they can't use computers or phones, even though they're on Facebook all day long. My mom's 80 and is on Facebook all day long. That just shows the power of politics and lobbying and how it works. It's kind of crazy. Just these bills find are these constituents and have the power. They get their play in there. And it's just, what are you going to do for me? And I'll do for you.
Yeah, very interesting. I find it very interesting also that some of the large companies and the government entities still require you to use faxes, and nobody uses faxes anymore. They won't do email.
That's a big one too. Some of our old, actually not much in our world. It's kind of gone away finally in financial services, but in our world for many, many years, it was like you had to fax something. You had to find an app to create a PDF, turn it into a fax to send it, and all that. So most of that's gone. So then you went into law.
I was going to go into law in Hawaii because my wife is from there. But unfortunately, I had to take away from her family because they just had the University of Hawaii Law School back then came into existence, but it wasn't accredited. So long story short, I ended up coming here to USD in San Diego, and we just never left. That was in 1976, and still to this day, it bugs me, but my wife still refers to Hawaii as home. She still has family there and all that. But
I understand. And it's not a bad home. It's a beautiful home.
No, it's nice. It's changed significantly from when she was young and her mother was young there. Her mother was actually like those stories in the movie. She actually was able to go out there and look up and watch the bombers come in at Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
Some of her family members were working in Pearl Harbor. They didn't know if they were alive or dead for weeks because they couldn't find out. Very interesting stories, but things have really changed there on all of the islands, especially Oahu, with all of the development and things. You know, when her mother was young, there was only one hotel in all of Waikiki.
Wow. Yeah, that's been a huge, huge change. It's been a couple of years. It was my birthday year, I think 2018. Love it there for a couple of days, and then go out to Maui and kind of get the relaxed life there after being in Waikiki.
I actually prefer San Diego to Hawaii. I think Hawaii is great if you're on vacation and some nice young lady's bringing you a cool drink every so often. But if you actually live there and have to work there, it's a little humid, a little bit congested, not quite the same as vacation. Well, we have an office there, by the way. We have an office in Orange County, and we have an office now in downtown Honolulu, which I very rarely go to, but yeah.
Okay. Well, what does your office do? Tell us more about you and how you work with business owners.
Well, we grew up as an estate planning firm, and you know, basic estate planning and all that sort of thing. I'm a little bit older than my partner Joe. We now have about 8 attorneys, and altogether about 17 team members here. But I started out basically doing a real basic level estate planning, and I was fortunate in that I joined something in the early, say mid 80s, called the National Network of Estate Planning Attorneys. And they really helped me broaden my horizons in terms of training and in terms of understanding what I'll call past tense, or saying that we can do this. And I say, well, I've never done that. No, you can say we can do it. You belong to this group. You know, there are hundreds of members across the country, and it doesn't matter what anybody talks to you about. You just ask more questions, because either somebody in our group invented that technique, is a master at that technique, will co-counsel with you until you understand it yourself real well. So it was, for me, very empowering as an owner of a business to understand that there were no limitations.
Okay.
And believe me, I
That's
used that to the ultimate for a long time. I really leveraged on that.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense because as you're new in any industry, you have I've talked about this on various podcasts in the past. You have your identity as who you are and your role. And if you're a newer estate planning attorney, your role as an estate planning attorney, scale of 1 to 10 could be a 2 or 3 because you're just new. You just don't have the experience. You're still an amateur. But over experience or over time, and you gain that experience through transaction, or meeting, or just whatever work you have to do, slowly but surely you improve with that role as your experience grows. So it's phenomenal that you were part of that organization with all these individuals with experience here and higher roles,
It
higher role
eventually
scores.
morphed into another organization. And then now it's an organization way beyond attorneys. It's financial planners and life agents and just about everybody. We call them, we have various collaborative teams. But, you've probably heard of this saying when somebody comes in and they said, I've been in this business, an attorney, an advisor, whatever, for X number of years. You always wonder have they really been doing it for 20 years, or do they have the same year 20 times over? And
I think
that's what I got out of, but the time I got into that, I'd been at it for about 8 years, and I think I had the same year eight times over, and so it was able to really exponentially expand my horizon.
Well, I think one thing we didn't ask is how you and I met. So to that end, let's talk about that. So first, I was supposed to ask you this a while ago. Normally, my first question is, are you a client of mine?
No.
Exactly. It's just like to get that out there. And then we met not directly through LinkedIn, but we met through one of my designations, which is the SEPA.
Mm-hmm.
And so I obtained my SEPA designation last summer. And then Shelly your organization has some events here. We connected. I found out you're a veteran. And that's how we went down that path. So just like I'm a financial advisor. My own experience or my skill set as a technician is still as a 401k expert. Yes, we do many things, but my technician, what I did year after year after year, was really a 401k profit sharing pension expert. That's just what I did for the wirehouse for an independent. And then realizing there's a need to do more for business owners besides just being a one-trick pony. That's why I have these designations to go and find other skill sets, because you can do so much more, just like you've kind of done, how your natural evolution. So the SEPA was for me that next step into another foray of skill sets to help business owners. And then I learned about you and we connected, and here we are. So just the way you've gone through your journey, I've been doing this 20 years, but yeah, several of those years were the same year as a 401k expert, and now definitely broadened my horizon skill set. So this is why you're here and why we connected.
Yeah, I really enjoy working in collaborative groups. So we have morphed into, we still have what we call protecting promises department, I'll call it. Because I did so many things for people over the years, and I promised that somebody would be there someday when there was an incapacity or death. So we still do a lot of that. We still have attorneys that do basic planning. But most of our work now is in the higher net worth, more complex categories. And I enjoy working with the collaborative teams because you never know where the best idea is going to come from. Is it going to be the life agent? Is it going to be the CPA? Is it going to be somebody else? There's just so much leverage when you work together as a team and you're not worried about territories or egos or anything. One of my favorite sayings is, let's check our coats and our egos at the door, and let's do the best possible plan we can for our mutual plan.
I think it's a great way to position it. One of my guests earlier is a special forces doc, and he's done all sorts of crazy stuff in Afghanistan. And his saying, which he has tattooed on his arm, is no ego, all in.
Yeah.
Right. No ego, all in. Just get in, check your ego at the door, and make stuff happen. So to that end, why don't you chat more about that team-based model, so to speak? And, if I'm a business owner and I either inherited business from my parents or I had an idea 20 years ago and it's matured, I've built my team.
Let me tell you who we are, first of all.
Please.
Is that okay?
Please.
Our family of companies is really three. Our flagship is Mancini LLP, which is a law firm.
Here, let me stop you. Slide in a little bit more so I can hear you. Yeah, that's better. Okay. And just slow down when you read the name so we can hear you. Go for it.
Sure. It's Strazzeri Mancini LLP. That's the law firm. We help affluent families get to the heart of highly relevant matters resolve messes in the areas of integrated tax and estate planning. So that's our flagship. But we also have the Southern California Institute, SCI, that teaches about 200 plus programs a year. It's a thought leader community providing resources and education. And that started out way back when Joe Strazzeri and myself first became partners. And we were trying to get larger institutions and so forth to work with us. And we were told, well, they couldn't really favor a particular firm. After we started the Southern California Institute, and we basically had no agenda other than to educate, all of a sudden everybody was coming to us to get the education. And then we started providing continuing education credits and that sort of thing. And that just kind of grew all by itself. And it's just very large right now. Joe and I used to teach all those things by ourselves 20 plus years ago. And now we very rarely teach them. We have a lot of our instructors and other people that we teach those courses. The third entity is the Founders Group. And then the Southern California Institute is not a law firm. The Founders Group is the next entity, and it's not a law firm. It's a business consulting firm, which you're familiar with. And we do a lot of things there. We help people decide, do they want to have a transition? Do they want to sell or exit or not? Do they want to just increase the value of their business? Do they want to partially do that? Do they want to do it with family? Do they want to do it to outside buyers? And we work with them, and we work with making sure that we make their value as high as possible and work with them on retaining the most they can after the sale of their business. And that kind of doubles back into what we do at the law firm. In the law firm area, at the higher net worth or more complex cases, most attorneys bill by the hour, hourly billing. And I never did like that. I think that rewards the incompetent. I really do. I remember as a young attorney having minimum billable hours every month, and I'd get that pre-bill. I mean, oh no, I couldn't spend that much time going to the bathroom. Where'd all this time go? And I was short. So I'd be thinking, wait a minute. I was thinking about Brett's case on the way to work several times, and that 0.7 should really be a 1.5 or something. And you'd go through your pre-bill until you artificially manipulated it till you got your minimum billables because you had to. And I always disliked that form of, and then it sucks in a lot of what clients perceive as nickel and diming, fax charges and phone charges and copy charges and things that we just don't bill for. So we do something a little bit different. We bill for review, design, and implementation. Those are the three categories. A fourth would be ongoing maintenance, a program for yearly maintenance. So we have a flat fee for each set of engagements. And then once we reach the end of that engagement, if you want to retain us to the next level, then we have another flat fee.
Okay.
So that's the way we do it.
Let's take a step back. So your audience or your client or a business owner that comes to you, what does that person generally, he or she, look like, or that family look like? Because there are successful entrepreneurs out there. Where I'm trying to go with this is when would a successful entrepreneur say, I need to talk with Steve and his team?
Okay. So we have clients in our wealth strategies department from probably 15 million to 300 million value.
When you say million, that's their personal net worth, the value of the business, annual revenue. When you say value,
that's their personal net worth.
Okay. 15 million up.
Including value of entities that they might own.
Okay.
Our sweet spot, I would say, is somewhere between 30 and 60 million. And it's usually a family-owned business that needs help with, they're thinking of selling. They may have a couple of suitors out there. Can they do anything to make themselves more valuable? A lot of time it's the tax implications that really motivate them. Oh my gosh, if I sell this business, look at all I'll get. And then when they really take a second look, how much of that is going up in capital gain taxes and other kinds of taxes. And they're used to having a lifestyle business where they can do things with their business. And then they find out about due diligence and they have to back a lot of that stuff out because it's not really, the buyer's not going to like that. So their number might go down. And then they're not used to being in the market. They're used to owning business assets. Sometimes it's real estate. And so now they have to get whatever they're going to get, their net after the sale. And then they have to then invest that in the market, which is not what they're used to doing. And will that really give them the same kind of return that they're used to for their lifestyle and all their toys and everything like that. So that's kind of a counseling and adjustment set there as well. But usually they're interested in, how can I minimize the taxes? How can I minimize ultimately someday the estate taxes? We often hear from people, these higher net worth families, they really don't mind paying taxes, but I hear constantly this statement, something like this.
Sure.
I don't mind paying my fair share, but this is ridiculous. you know, so, I don't want to do this. And they're worried about making sure their kids aren't going to be trust babies and be spoiled, and they'll still be contributing members of society. They're worried about asset protection, creditor protection, because they're not going to go out and remake it all again. So they want to take some chips off the table and make sure they're always going to be there. So those are the kinds of issues we deal with. And of course, everybody has their own idiosyncrasies in different situations.
Right. So with that being said, is there normally one advisor that brings a family to you because your relationships for many years? Is a CPA generally coming to you, or is there one primary CPA firm or financial advisories?
It used to exclusively be that, Brett. But now, because we're teaching a lot, we have advisors. In our practice has grown to, we're only licensed in California, but we now have a practice where we have clients all over the country. So we usually borrow the laws of other states. If we have to do something in another state, we hire an attorney in that state to bless it because they're licensed in that state, right? And we often borrow the laws of other jurisdictions without, well, I'll just say it as simply as possible. In my opinion, I'll qualify it with that.
Sure.
California is not the best jurisdiction, the laws in California, to use for a lot of things. So often we'll use Nevada, Wyoming, other states' laws to get things done to make sure that there's the best protection possible and the best taxation result. If you were to look in this area of law, the best way I could describe it would be people like you and I, we go and we work together, we talk with others, and we come up with a strategy or a technique, right? Then we start using it. It grows. Because our egos are so big, we just can't help it. We teach it. We talk to other people about it. And then it gets, next thing you know, the Wall Street Journal or something, some institution like that publishes it. And then some irate congressperson says, that's horrible. Let's get some legislation to make that not happen, or talk to the IRS or something. And then basically you rinse and repeat. We go back to some room and figure it all out. And that cycle kind of repeats itself.
So would you say in the last, say, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, were there more opportunities and it's getting harder and harder to find those quote, wins for entrepreneurs and their families?
I don't think so. I just think it's different.
Please, different how?
Well, let me give you an example.
Please.
I can talk about this now because they're trying to get rid of it. There's something called an incomplete non-grantor trust. And if it's done in Wyoming, it's called a NING. That's the ING is the acronym.
Okay.
Delaware, it's a DING. If it's Wyoming, it's a WING. That kind of
thing. Okay. Ding and wing. I can follow that.
The gist of that is it provides incredible asset protection. And if I'm in California and I'm selling my business, I have to deal with the federal capital gain tax rate, but I also have the California tax situation, which is 13.3 plus plus plus, and they want to make it more and more. So if I utilize one of those trusts properly, and I do
hence properly, you slowed down to say the word properly. So yeah. I think we'll emphasize that. We can read between the lines there. I think
so, because a lot of people come in and it's like, well, I got a letter of intent or something like that. So now I want to sell my business. Well, you wait that close to it, and a lot of your opportunities are gone because it's too close in time. But anyway, if you do this properly and you sell it, you can avoid the California taxes on the proceeds of the sale of your business. Well, New York State got wind of that and they outlawed it. California now is saying they want to outlaw it too. So I don't know where that's going to go. That, and they're talking about an exit tax, has got all sorts of people calling and emailing about, how can I avoid this? Do I have to leave the state? That kind of thing.
Wow. So with your strategies and your experience to figure this out, what would you say is a prudent timeline if I'm an owner and I'm successful enterprise and my family's successful? When should I start chatting with someone like you, or how should I broach it? Is it something I talk with my CPA about? I've had it for 30 years. How do
I think
I
the
start having the
sooner I
conversation,
think the
and
sooner
when?
the better. The sooner the better, Brett. We always try and get together what we call a collaborative team. So let's say that a particular advisor brought them to the table. That would be the advisor we work with. We'd also want to know, hey, Mr. Client or Mr. and Mrs. Client, do you have a CPA? Are you comfortable with them? Can we loop your CPA into this at some point? Because we need the CPA as part of this team. I prefer, you were talking about lobbyists earlier, right? Well, the life insurance lobby has a great lobby. So we have a lot of people talk about life insurance, and you probably heard this term many times, but they say things like, I don't believe in life insurance. And we say, it's not religion, it's just math. Let's talk about it. So I like to have people, go with their life agent in the very beginning of the process, and whatever they have to do, go pee in a bottle, give blood. Let's get this process going. It's free. Let's just find out what the offers could be. Is it a possibility for you? Because we wait until the last minute, that could hold everything up. So we do a lot of life insurance as a lot of different ways. We don't believe in I'll call it a one technique, one and done, because things change. Things definitely change at all levels. And if something happens so that technique fails, we'd rather have an overall holistic plan with not crazy, but at least different techniques in there that interrelate, that we can measure the cash flows for. And if one of those fails, you've got all the things in the rest of the plan to pick up the slack.
Yeah, I think for our listeners here, it's interesting to see. So everyone, if you're a professional, you want to come across as an expert, but we only have so much brain capacity. We only can know so much. You may be very knowledgeable, but it's hard to know everything about everything. And I think your partner, Joe, had a great analogy. I was in one of their meetings in Orange County with Shelly last month. And this happens all the time. I will get emails, Brett, use this product with your business owners, use this product, and pitching me a product. Get in front of this, get in front of that. I don't know. How is it good? Is it bad? Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it appropriate? When's it appropriate? And your partner, Joe, said, you know what? We've got not one lever. And if you're a one lever pony, so to speak, you go, and this is the best thing for everyone all the time, you're not the right guy, right? If you just have one thing, you think that one thing is always the right answer. He's like, we have 70. And it's even in our brochure. And it changes. We add some and some go away.
They come in different flavors.
Right. And so I think you really hit onto something there, because it's not about, hey, this is my thing to help you. It's, hey, what do you want to do? What's the universe of things? And with every pro, there's a con, right? There's no perfect answer. No matter what you do, there's a cost, right?
Well,
but is that
didn't you just say, Brett, that sometimes you'll get a new product
all the time, all the time. I spend so much time in diligence. It's crazy.
How can that possibly be a product that would be good for everybody that comes into your office or talks to you?
It's not.
The more sophisticated and higher net worth clients that we have, they know this more than anybody. They do not expect that they find an advisor that knows it all. They know that's impossible. So if you present yourself as knowing it all, they're going to sniff that out very quickly.
What would you say then right now? So for the audience is listening, the veteran entrepreneur, a lot of government contractors here, they kind of get some government contracts going. They built a second career doing government contracts, and they get some success. They get some wealth. I'm thinking of a client right now, started his business 15 years ago. Now is over 100 employees, several million a year in revenue, several tens of millions of revenue. And they have some advisors. And how do you know if it's the right advisor? Like a lot of like a CPA relationship. Your CPA you have when you start out, are they the right CPA for 10, 15, 20 years? You go from a couple 100,000, a couple million to several million a year in revenue, or tens of millions a year in revenue. Is that same CPA the right one? Or what are the signs that your team is growing beyond, or your needs are growing beyond your current team?
Well, I would have to back up a little bit on that, because we believe strongly that we need to gather all the data. So a lot of advisors work on no data or what we call stated data. Okay. They don't verify it. We believe in verified data. So we're sometimes irritants to everybody because we want to see copies of everything. And you find so many times that, for example, the LLC says it's owned this way, and the tax returns for the last 8 years have been filing a different way. And you find all of these inconsistencies. So we have to make sure we get all of the information. And when we do that, that kind of sometimes that exposes some of the people on the team. But we strongly believe that we should not be trying to interrupt or dislodge relationships. So, that sometimes the client comes out on their own terms. Sometimes we say, look, the client says, well, clearly I need something more than this relationship. Well, do you want to keep that relationship and just bring in somebody else to help with this other stuff? And so we give them those opportunities because we don't want to be seen as somebody that goes around telling all the clients that they should get rid of this particular relationship in favor of another. And, that happens a lot. We deal with a lot of family attorneys who just simply don't do anything other than the basics. That doesn't mean we try and disrupt that relationship. We still want to keep them in on part of the collaborative team, making sure they're involved if that's what the client wants.
What about the perception and or for an advisor that is quote unquote protective of their client or protective of that relationship, and they view you as an existential threat versus you're a liability, you're not an asset, and you could jeopardize that relationship? Does that ever happen?
Yes, and yes. I'll just be very candid. That happens a lot. And some of the people that bring us these kinds of cases, this may be the biggest case they have, or the one or two biggest case they have, and it could represent a significant amount of their income for any one year. And they're very concerned about that. We literally sometimes have a hard time getting, before we meet with everybody, the actual name and contact information. They're so protective. Or they'll say things like, you can't send anything unless you copy me, or I'm involved in it. And they're so worried that we would do or say something that might alienate that client from them. So we have to be very, very careful about that. We have a lot of relationships like that. And then if they work with us more than a couple of times, they become a lot more comfortable.
Like any relationship, it's a genuine relationship. Trust is earned.
Yeah.
Right. It takes time. And you kind of start here and it's yours to lose. Right.
Yeah.
So if you maintain that level of standard, hopefully, okay, you've had one good experience, one good transaction. Okay, I'm comfortable doing another and another and another. So let's do some, this is recording. Let's do some live kind of role play. So I'm thinking right now, one of my clients has a CPA and I'm working with them there. And I try to recommend a couple strategies or would have discussion to help that owner when they sell. And I brought an idea or two or several ideas to the president of the organization, who's not the owner, but he's like the president's my main contact. And he's the gatekeeper also to the owner and very protective of the owner. And I said, hey, you're looking to sell. This is what's going on in a couple of years. Here's this, this, and this. Let's get together a CPA and talk about it. And he's like, oh, my CPA, he's gonna eat you up. I can't let you talk to him. He's gonna throw you to the wolves and he's gonna spit you out. So that humbly, hey, I'm sitting here. This is recording, but it's also live the same time right now we're doing it. What do you say to that scenario? Because I run into that. I'm literally thinking as you're talking, I'm thinking about my own clients, my own opportunities, and things I run into on a day-to-day basis. When you want to bring ideas or want to have a conversation with someone to see if you can provide value, to see if you can provide a different perspective, to give them a better outcome down the road. But it all starts with a conversation. And sometimes those relationships, again, as we just went through, are very protected. And maybe because you are maybe newer, and I'll call myself out, this isn't my world all the time, right? This isn't my world. I don't mind professionally saying I'm a freshman, sophomore this year. I'm kind of a wise fool, but that's why I have relationships with you. So we can build that experience, or I can build my experience together with a team that does have the experience. So how do you address that for someone in my situation, would you say?
Well,
and lean forward, please.
I will. I think What I heard was you have a technique or something,
Or
a product,
physically lean forward. Sorry, physically lean forward.
a product or
Yeah.
something you want to talk to them about, right? I
Well,
would say
yeah.
don't do that.
Okay.
So most advisors lead with a product or strategy. We think that you should not do that, and you should lead with benefit and process. In other words, let's go to our review engagement. We charge them a flat fee, basically to crawl up their behind and get every single piece of information we can get. And we organize it. And we've actually had clients say at the end of this review engagement that they've never had their assets all organized before like that before. They never understood it before. So we get everything. We organize it. We then
How long does that take? Sorry, how long does that take? Just for a listener.
From my perspective, that's the hardest part of the whole thing, is to get this information. Because sometimes you have very wealthy people who say, well, I don't deal with that. Deal with my assistant or my CPA. And then you have advisors, mostly CPAs, but saying things like that. Well, I'm really the quarterback here. I'm the person that should be leading this whole thing because I was at the weddings and the bar mitzvahs or whatever, and I've known them for umpty decades or whatever. And they have all the information, and then come to find out they don't have all the information. They have less than 10% of the information. So we're big. If you've heard Joe speak, he's probably talked about us getting all of the information, verifying the information, including the last 10% of everything, because a lot of advisors get just basic information, sometimes not verified, and off to the races they go with the solution. So we do this, then we meet with the clients and we spend several hours with them trying to find out what's in their heart of hearts. Not legal, not tax, not product. What are their goals in life? What do they really want at a gut level? And we never give them any possible solutions. That's not for that. Now, at the end of that engagement, we say, now we've got all your stuff. By the way, we're still missing these things. You got to get them for us. And we're done with our review engagement. If you want us to do a design, it's going to be X amount of money, and you can retain us to do the design. The design is where we get together with a collaborative team, analyze and test, and start coming up with ideas as a group. Ultimately, we put together a plan, and then we present that plan to the clients. And we present that plan as a collaborative group, not, I mean, there are times when I've gone to meetings years ago where the CPA would actually come in and physically sit on the other side of the table next to the client because it's them against us. What do you guys have to tell us? That kind of a thing. So we believe that the client should not be the ping pong ball between advisors. Your attorney tells you this, then you go off to your accountant and they say, I don't know about that. You should do this. Then you go off to the other advisor and they, no, I've got this thing I can sell you. We'll take care of that. So they're running around like that, not knowing who to trust. We believe that we should all get together and make a consensus recommendation to them once we've sorted it out as a collaborative group.
That's
so to
beautiful.
answer your question, I would
Please.
lead with benefit and process, not a product, because how do you possibly know what product will help at that point?
Well, that's the whole question. This is a great conversation because I'm literally running through my mind right now several opportunities. So with that, though, if you don't know what the outcome is, if you don't know what the potential benefit could be, why would I want to go through that proctology appointment, right? To have that figured out. What you're talking about is having a very deep personal, financial, emotional, physical. That's what you're asking. And so, okay, great. This is what you want to do. Why would I want to do that? As if I'm that entrepreneur, I've got my business, I've been running it 30, 40 years.
Most people understand that what they have is a mess at that level. They don't understand it, and they understand that it takes something more than just buying the next coolest thing that came out. So usually they don't have a problem in doing it. But, if you've heard Joe speak, one of his favorite things that I've used too, because I like it, it's, look, if this other person is saying they know what to do for you, God bless you, go with them. Their crystal ball works a lot better than mine. I'm probably 15, 20 hours from even understanding the problem, let alone coming up with solutions. So, maybe they're just a lot smarter than I am. And he's pretty much the master of what I call pushaways. He does that a lot at all different levels where, yeah, it's okay. Then they'll say, well, can't you just answer it? Well, I'm not, I tell you what, send me that information. I'll give you my opinion. All you have to do is send me a couple of nice bottles of wine, something like that. And most times the push away makes them come closer to you because they in their gut level, in their heart of hearts, they understand that this can't be right. How can somebody come along? They don't know all my assets. They don't know what my goals are really. They don't know who we are. And if they want me to buy this umpty ump, whatever it is, for a product that's supposed to solve everything. So I would say that insurance-wise, Brett, I probably sold more insurance than most agents do in their lifetimes. I remember in particular going back, this is probably about 12, 13 years ago or more now, where the gist of it was the advisor, whenever you have a local agent, they bring in their regional guy to close the deal, right?
Right, of course.
And so they brought in this guy, and he had his
Tony two
briefcase.
times.
Pardon?
Tony 2 times. Hey.
Yeah, exactly. So he brought this guy in with the briefcase, and he wanted to talk to me, and he didn't want anybody here. You're not going to believe this, but we ended up in the men's room across the hall. And he wanted me to know, he says, I haven't met you, but I know all about you guys and your touchy-feely nonsense. I've got the application in my briefcase. It's a $500,000 life insurance. I'm not leaving here today until that's sold. And I just don't want you to get, I don't want you to impede that at all. So without going into the long story, the bottom line was I did impede it. We didn't sell his life insurance, but within 4 months, he sold $1 million life policy because we showed where they needed a lot more insurance than that. So, and it's hard. It's hard when you have a bird in the hand. You want
Of course,
your quotas or your end of month or end of year, whatever it is. And I understand that, but it's not in the best interest of our mutual clients.
That's the answer right there. And that if you're with the right team, you've got the integrity, you know what's right, you're doing the best for the client, and you can wait. And if you know you're doing right for the client and it's gonna take a little longer, but it's in their best interest, that's all that matters. If it happens, it happens because you're doing the right work. So let me finish because it's almost been an hour already. It's flying by. But I think you just hit on a subject or topic that I think should be addressed. And that is the stigma of the slimy insurance salesperson. Let's call it salesman, not even saleswoman, salesman, the slimy insurance man. However, that negative stigma and what really insurance is and what it can do, and how to dispel that stigma. Would that be okay? Sorry, is that too much to finish on?
We believe in insurance, and we believe that insurance has a place.
Why? Why would you believe in insurance when
Because
it's all these slimy people out there?
It's a way to fund things. It's a way to take care of a lot of situations. As we say, it's math. It's not religion. It's just math. You just have to figure it out. You have to get some quotes. You have to find out what you're eligible for, what the cost will be. There are lots of different products for insurance. There are lots of different ways to integrate them with trusts to get them out of your taxable estate, even down to your basic ILIT or irrevocable life insurance trust. So that we all know that life insurance is not income taxable for the death benefit, but it's estate taxable unless you do something about it. So there's lots of ways to do that. And we put life insurance, we do a lot of out-of-state trusts, spousal lifetime access trusts, and various kinds of trusts where we basically use them like an ILIT, and we pump a lot of insurance to that for a lot of reasons.
What's an ILIT? Sorry for our listeners who may not know.
An irrevocable life insurance trust. So if I had a policy on my life for $1 million, my wife was the beneficiary. When I died, she gets the $1 million. It's not subject to income tax. But when she dies, whatever's left of that is subject to estate tax. So sometimes when you buy life insurance, it's like pouring gasoline on the estate tax fire. But if you own it in a certain way, it's both income tax-free and estate tax-free. So we take a look at a lot of insurance. A lot of people have big policies out there or a bunch of policies, and they're all includable in their estate. And the estate tax problem goes away if we just remove those insurance policies, the death benefits, from their estate taxable estate.
So it's just a vehicle. It's just a tool to accomplish a mean.
Yeah, exactly.
And but there is a negative stigma associated with it.
Well, right? As I said, people don't like insurance, and they often do say that exact phrase, I don't believe in insurance. And we have to educate them that it's not a matter of that. It's a matter of, does it work for you? Is it financially beneficial for you and your family to do this? Do the numbers make sense?
And let the numbers speak for themselves.
A lot of our plans, there's a lot of insurance being sold.
So you just run the numbers in the day. You have a need. Here's an objective. We use this vehicle to work towards that outcome.
Yeah.
Is that
You know,
appealing to you or
I'd
not?
like them to get that going in the very beginning, as I was involved with a plan recently where they didn't do that. And they actually really wanted the life insurance. We were telling them how good it was, but the life agent just wasn't getting it done fast enough. And long story short, it came out where because they were elderly and had all these health issues, it was just not going to work. It was like, three or $400,000 a year in premiums for each of them.
Wow.
So
Okay. Well, this has been fascinating. What would you say then, as we kind of bring this together? Number one, I'd love to have you back on. So I think we can go deeper in this and we can actually maybe have another educational series where we have a situation or a couple case studies we walk through that some of the veteran entrepreneurs listening could relate to. But what would you say, kind of in summary, as you bring this together? The main, if I'm an entrepreneur thinking 3 years out, 5 years out, I'm looking at my family, I'm looking at the management team, my business, I'm some guy, I'm at a bar, I'm just chatting with somebody, happens to be a venture capitalist or, works for a private equity firm. And, oh, I heard you on this business. Oh, we should talk about that. So what's the environment? What is the mindset of an entrepreneur when they should really start thinking about this?
I would say try and use the power of numbers. Talk about we as your extended group. We can handle just about everything. And I would also say that people come out and work so hard and get so frustrated. There's something. Have you heard of Dan Sullivan, the strategic coach?
Dan Sullivan, I've heard so many coaches, not particularly one I have not, but please
He's
enlighten
called
me.
the strategic coach for a
Oh,
reason.
okay. Okay. He's the one. Okay.
He has a lot of really cool things. One of them is called the gap. And he says people are always going forward and worried and so rushed to get to their goals and working so hard. But the horizon will always be the horizon. Take a deep breath, turn around, and look at how far you've come, and you will be uplifted by that. He's big on process, naming your process. I said benefit and process. Everybody should have a process, and he's big on naming it carefully and making sure that the clients and all the advisors understand your process. And so you actually have a process to point to. How are we going to get you from here to there? Don't worry about it. We have a process. It's not our first rodeo. We've done this for many years. And these are the steps that we get there. And so that's very important to a lot of people that they understand that for financial products, they're not going to just get that and buy it off. They understand that we're going to get from here to here, and this is the process to get there. And in the end, we're going to have covered all these bases.
I think that's right. So in summary, I'll let you close it, and then I'm going to ask how someone can reach out to you if you're open for that. It sounds like if you're an entrepreneur, the main thing is your team, and then having an idea, pretty much not doing this tomorrow, not waiting, the sooner the better. And I think the SEPA, or the Certified Exit Planning Advisory process, the value acceleration process, which for that entrepreneur, having someone come in, look at your processes, is your business as attractive as it can be? Will you get the most value for your business? So that's the pre-work, or the homework almost, to coming to you. And if your business is bulletproof, so to speak, you've got diversified customer base, you've got contracts in place, you've got a good workforce that's stable with low turnover, you've got longevity with your clients and revenue, and your profit's good, then you probably get higher multiples. And then it's kind of, once that's all dialed in, your business is clean and ready, so to speak, for its next evolution, its next owner, whether it's your management team, whether it's your family, whether it's a strategic buyer. Then, okay, I've got my ducks in a row. I've got my team in place. I like, trust, and respect. They communicate well. We communicate well. Now is probably time to chat with Steve to bring it all together, to be the quarterback in this process, to make sure that when it's done, that myself as a person, business owner, or former business owner, entrepreneur, parent, grandparent, great grandparent, is leaving a legacy that I want behind, that I'm taking care of today, and I'm keeping as much as I can within reason. Is that a good summary, or how would you summarize your
Yeah,
entire process?
I think you need a good, and I think this is what you're talking about, internal team. And then you need a good group that you work with. And that can be hundreds, and people that you know that you've made contact with. What you're doing is you're doing that right now, making all these contacts and having all of these relationships. So you know that if you run into somebody that has a particular AOE, you know somebody that they're an expert in fixing that AOE, right?
Heck yeah. And that's
And
the
that's what it's
relationship.
all about.
That's
Now, we've had
exactly it.
people come to us and say, well, okay, you guys, this is very interesting, but I'm a one-person shop. I don't have this team. So we were challenged to come up with ways that we could have docking ports to us for them to kind of have a place where they can dock up to us and use our team for themselves.
And that's where our relationship has come from that docking process as it's beginning right now in my own infancy in this journey, in this skill set with you and your team. So I want to thank you very much for that. If someone wants to, hey, Brett, we want to go right to Steve. How do they find you though? How does someone connect with you?
Well, we're at the web is for the law firm is StrazzeriMancini.com.
Slow that down because you say
Strazzeri, Strazzeri, Mancini, Mancini.com. By the way, speaking of the name,
please.
When I was in Italy, the Italian people there told me that I don't even know how to pronounce my own last name. It's not Mancini. They said it's Mancini. So for the Southern California Institute, it's scinstitute.org. And for the Founders Group, it's foundersgroup.biz. Our phone number is 858-200-1900. And we just had to move our offices because the owner of our building sold it out from under us. Biotech company. So we're off of Governor Drive right now on Greenwich. We have normally we have people that kind of triage. Is it going to be, like I said, this wealth strategies, higher net worth, and it goes one way? Is it going to be basic planning, then it goes another way? So we have client relation coordinators that direct that traffic. And we were just talking the other day at a meeting about, well, what if you don't know or if it's wrong? That's just you have to pivot when you figure it out which way it's going to go. But
so I think a simple summary then for this relationship, it's all about people and process, not product.
Yes, that would be, I think, one of the most important things, if anybody's going to listen to this, to get from that if you're going to be hawking product and strategy, sooner or later, it's not going to work out for you.
People, process. Love it. Steve, this has been great. My uncle that I don't have, but I think this is great. Hopefully I met your partner, Joe. I'd love to meet you in person too soon. Shake your hand. I may be going to, I guess you guys have a training for the Founders Group, I think in February. So I think I'm going to be attending that.
In February.
Yes, I'm probably going to be looking at that. This is great. If anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm Brett Henderson, Brett@SWE90.com, or find me on LinkedIn, Brett Henderson. Thanks so much. It's been a great episode. And Steve, I'd love to have you back and do another one. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.